morning. My name is Tomboya, but before we leave, Kiharu legislator Ndindi Nyoro was ranked the best performing member of parliament in the utilization of the National Government Constituency Development Fund. That's in a survey by Infortrak on the 5th of November. The legislator was hailed for heavy investing in education, among other key projects. Our reporter, JJ Kioria, had a sit down with the Kiharu constituency legislator, and they examined how the constituency is absorbing the 150 million shillings that's allocated to the constituency. Here is that report. Thank you for watching. I'm Tomboya. Goodbye. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Kioria, and the entire KBC for this interview, and also for the time you spent in terms of checking our projects and what we do, especially in Kiharu. One thing that we try to do, and I am saying it just not as a backdrop of being an MP, I believe whichever position anyone is given an opportunity to serve, there are so many people who would qualify to be in that position. And therefore, I find it very important that whatever role that we are discharging, it is important we do it with all that we have in terms of the resources around us. Because my argument inakuanga, yule mtu hard working na yule yako lazy, bado siku ni 24 hours. Na zote zinaisha. So you better then utilize the limited time there is in every day to effect some changes, not just to yourself, but other people. But having said that, most of what we've done in Kiharu, and especially through CDF, as you have seen, is majorly in education sector. Because I have this belief that it is very hard that we would be where we are, were it not for an opportunity to go to school. It is not because our parents could afford, but because the ecosystem then, somehow we survived through primary school and high school. There are so many parents who are like our parents when we were growing up, who we are now in December, in November going to December, their children will be reporting to school early next year, and they don't know where even 1 shilling of school fees will come from. Since we have been bred and brought up in that kind of circumstance, I always feel obliged to make things better for parents and also for learners, so that we can give them decent education which is affordable, but also where the circumstances are right in terms of infrastructure and the rest. So probably part of the motivation is based on where we've come from. And therefore, that probably shapes a lot of decision making around what we do in Kiharu. Actually, the problem I had seen is not just in Kiharu but across, where the learners who are in schools, their parents are always at the mercy because they rarely are able to clear their school fees. So when we were going around campaigning, even for the president, I could see and identify with many Kenyans, even beyond Kiharu. And let me tell you, Kioria, that program of Masomo Bora, we started conceptualizing it immediately after elections. I remember there are times we left this office at 3 a.m. in the morning, trying to craft a formula on how to lower the school fees. Because yes, what is conventional is bursary issuance, but then it goes up to this level. We thought it is important we do much more. We do something unorthodox. So what we did is we took all the data of our public secondary day schools. There are around 61 in Kiharu, with the learners around 13,000 learners. So we then took all the expenditure items for every school, and we try to work backwards. What we realized are a few things. One is that schools, most of the schools in Kenya, they run like an insurance company. The school fees they charge is more like the policy. Because you ask every principal in Kenya, they'll tell you they target 70% fee payment in the school you run. Because they factor in, there are some who will delay, there are some who will actually not pay. So what we did then, after finding out the amount of money that all our schools spend every year, which came to around 120 million, then we worked a formula. What if this money is available beforehand? Then that does a lot of things, because the 70% then becomes the new basis. So you lower school fees by just paying in time. So we came back now and crafted, what if then we provision this money that we are providing from the NG-CDF upfront, so that we are not chasing the past, we are actually confronting the future. So that is what we did. Secondly, you realize that the majority of the schools, because of how fees is paid, they are not able to buy a lot of commodities in big quantities. Quantities in a day school, meaning especially food. So what happens is that they lose out on a quantity discount, because you can only buy for your school. And you also lose out on pricing. Pricing because when you are buying small, you pay more. When you are buying more, you pay less. So we did something called backward aggregation. So you know what the quantity we need for all the schools, then we work backwards. So what we do, that is why the school fees is low. One, we aggregate our purchases. If there is purchases to be done, we negotiate for them in aggregate, and then in consequence, we pay less. So that is how we are able to achieve that kind of school fees. However, I must also acknowledge that we also got a boost from an organization called Food for Education, who also were very pivotal, because that is their domain, in crafting a formula that would, one, promote nutrition, but also number two, lower school fees. However, Masomo Bora is not just about food. That is why it is an educational program. We have provided in it 10 million shillings for revision books for our day schools, and in it, currently we have embarked on transforming all our day schools, transforming in terms of new infrastructure, and also reworking on the infrastructure that is old, so that all our public day schools, there will be no distinction between a day school in Kiharu and any other place. And lastly, one other policy that we came up with is that even if a child from whichever side of Kenya comes to study in any of our day schools, they'll also pay the same 1,000. And the reason we did that is because many times we ask parents for IDs to identify where they vote. But this is a learner. This learner is not of the age of voting. What they want is education. So that if there is an auntie of a learner who is in Kiharu, and that learner is anywhere in Kenya, and their parents cannot take them to school, when they come to a Kiharu day school, they pay just the 1,000 that Kiharu day scholars pay. I am glad you went around this December, because you have embarked on that program. And when you get time, I would request that I accompany you. We go in January. Because for the last 5 years, we were able to tile all our public day schools. All of them. There is no single one. There is no pupil in Kiharu who steps in a classroom without tiles. And when I talk about tiles, tiles is a representative of the others. Because we have built new structures. We have renovated all the old structures. There is no wooden doors again. There are no wooden windows. There are no wire mesh. We have redone all our schools so that they look like real schools in terms of, I don't want to use the name the word academy, because I think they are even more than some of the private schools that we have. The reason we did that is to dignify learners. You know, when you have some means, you are able to take your children to a school that resonates well in terms of what they see also. But majority of our rural day schools, and especially primary schools, are at the same state that we went through them. So we came up with a program of having and bringing modern infrastructure in our schools. And we have achieved on the side of our day schools. How are we able to achieve this? With the retro money that we get from CDF. What we did, we came up with a program called labor-based, where in Kiharu, NG-CDF projects are community projects. We don't give tenders. The people who work on those projects are the people of Kiharu. It is a tedious job because it's provided for in the Public and Procurement and Public Disposal Act. But we took the hard path because accounting for that program is also very difficult. But we took it up because we thought that is where we would optimize. We then, because we knew we are doing tiling, and we knew this is a skill that maybe not many people possess, and professional painting was also part of it. We took 150 people from Kiharu. We took them into a short course. We trained them on how to fix tiles. We also took another 150. We trained them on professional paintings. We already had welders. We already had foodies. We already had carpenters. And therefore, we were able to optimize on all the labor that actually gets applied, or all the people who work on all our projects. They all come from Kiharu. So that when we give a school money, let's say we give the upper money, the upper primary, secondary, the upper primary money, then all that money, most of it will remain around there. Because those are the people who actually end up supplying in that particular project. And therefore they actually become real community projects. Secondly, now this year, around actually the same 5 years, ile ya kwanza, we also started 7 new day schools with the same model. Some already have students. There are like 3 that will be opening in January. So it's not just primary schools. We also went to secondary schools and improved infrastructure, including now building new institutions. Now, this December, after now doing all the work for the past 5 years in primary schools, it reached a point where you'd come to Kiharu, then you get lost. Because you know most of our rural areas, the primary school is near a secondary school. Now, primary school became better in terms of appearance infrastructure. So you'd come as a visitor in Kiharu, when you are going to a primary school, to a secondary school, you'd likely go to the primary. So that is why now we have started another program now targeting our day schools, so that we elevate their infrastructure, we elevate how they look. We are already in the process this December. There is no single corner in Kiharu that there is no ongoing work. Because what we do, we push all our CDF projects towards a holiday that is long, so that we don't disturb learners, but we also capitalize on that time that there are no learners, so that we transform a lot of infrastructure. Now, on the same breath, we came up now from actually last year. We have already tested in 2 schools, beautification and cabro. We've already actually done in 2 primary schools, and it's complete. This December, we are doing an extra 10. This is still piloting, and then we will roll out to all our schools. What we do again to bring the cost down, before we embark on any project, the preliminary work takes a lot of time. We make sure there is labor. If there is no labor, we train. We identify supply chains, so that where we can bridge a supply chain by bringing in Kiharu people, we do that, so that we capitalize on all our money revolving around our locality. So that's what we do. So we are currently now doing cabro in our public primary schools and also our day schools. And not just cabro. What we decided, because I called our staff and we discussed about this. When we work, we just don't look at brick and mortar. We look for also an appealing output. So what we are doing beyond cabro is proper landscaping in our public primary schools and day schools, including planting palms, planting all the exotic trees that you may think of, so that our day schools, there will be our primary schools and our day schools there will be no distinction between any school you get in any developed country with the ones that we'll be having. First of all, I want to appreciate all the work done by majority of the MPs, because they really try. Many times the leader could have the right intentions, but then the process involves other people. And maybe some of those people, you can't control them. So having that atmosphere and a clear process is very important. Secondly, it is important to take charge. I was involved, including choosing the colors of the tiles and every other details. Because my assessment is usually that when you're elected in an elective position, it is you who get elected by the people. They don't elect your staff. They elect you. So you have to have the last responsibility. And you cannot blame anyone for performance or non-performance, because the ultimate responsibility in the ballot was given to the individual, that is the MP or any other elective seat. So one of the reasons I know that works for us is the model. We cut a lot of cost by doing labor-based. We do a lot of multiplier by having this money rotating around our villages. So to answer you, I think we do a lot of planning before we implement. Like this Cabro project, we have done all the feasibility that needs to be done, including at one point we wanted to manufacture the Cabros ourselves. Then we found it may not work very well, because the margins in terms of the people who do that are not anything to worry about. So we do a lot of preliminary work and planning. We factified. Before we launch any project, the kind of work we usually have done is bigger than the project, so that you end up thinking more, so that you do less. Just the same way, you take time to sharpen your axe, other than take too much time cutting a tree. So that is part of the areas that we capitalize on. But also, having very good people. I think I'm also lucky to be an MP of very great people, because some of the projects that we do, it's not the Ndindi Nyoro who do them. We actually do it as a community. And for example, Kioria, all those schools I'm mentioning to you, I've been there myself, not once. For example, when we were doing Cabro, I could just go unannounced, spend time there, check the processes, check the quality, so that then you are totally answerable. And I remember one thing that happened when we were starting the tiling program. I went to one school and I found that the foodies who we had just trained, tile ilikuwa inawekwa not very straight. Then we had to make a decision. Do we look for other labor to do this work, or do we let our people make a few mistakes then perfect? Then we decided, if we don't give them an opportunity to learn, there is no one who will give them an opportunity to learn. So even those who were not very good in fixing tiles, we never chased them away. They perfected in the work. So they were able to get themselves a skill, but also we achieved doing what we did at a very optimal cost. Kioria, I think the answer to that question is that what you've talked about in terms of closeness to the president and the responsibilities in parliament, and also the achievement in terms of the constituency level, those issues are not mutually exclusive. I would actually say they are mutually inclusive. One helps the other. Why? The kind of mentorship, for example, we get by the closeness to the president by itself is a factor of doing the right job. So that is very important, and I have to give it to the president for being a very good mentor to me and many of us, because he has been an MP like us, so we keep on learning. Anytime you interact with a person like the president, you capitalize on learning, because they have seen much more than you have seen. Secondly, structures. Let me tell you, Kioria, for a leader to be effective, you have to devolve power, not responsibility. You have to devolve power. Give people an opportunity to make decisions. I can tell you, yes, I am very good in supervising in terms of going where the projects are, but I give my staff so much power. I tell them where you are the MP of Kiharu, because you are getting paid from the office of the MP. So when they are doing a project, they think the way I should think, so that there is efficiency. Because when you bog yourself down with all the details, when you set the right structures, then you are left supervising. But when you bog yourself down with details, you choke the process. In terms of budget making, when you let other people also exercise their mind and respect them, then you open up to so much creativity, cumulatively speaking. So we have the very good staff also. We do a lot of training after every now and then. Training not just technical one, but also the soft one. How do you handle people? How do you answer phone calls? Small things. When one of our bosses who is the voter in Kiharu calls you as my staff, how do you answer that phone call? We take like 40 minutes discussing a phone call, so that you have a straight line. When people now get accustomed to where you are going, the path is already laid, everyone is headed to that path, then there is very little time to waste. And then output becomes more multiplied. So we have setting the right structures is very critical. Devolving power is critical. So that the people you employ because you had noticed they are the best, then why are you rodding over them? Then if you rod over your staff, if you chase every detail, it means you actually wronged in hiring them. So you are the wrong person in the first place. So that is one of the issues that we look at. And also, we do not let any of the roles cross the other. There is a hierarchy I put. You not be budget chairman before you become a member of parliament. So you need to see what comes first. So that even when, and then secondly, Kenya is too critical a country for anyone given a role not to engage themselves fully into it. So, as you work in Kiharu, as an MP for Kiharu, or as I do so myself, on the other side, budget making process affects now everyone else. So both roles are critical, and none can give way to the other. So it's just about how do you arrange your time. And I think on that, we do a lot of that, because most times, 10 p.m. in this office, most of the time is just like 2 p.m. You are likely to get full staff here in this office at 10 p.m. working like it is during daytime. So then you wonder, even if we went home earlier, what is the benefit of those who went home earlier? So that's how you look at it. If you can devote 2-3 more hours to the country, Kenya becomes better, and then you just give up a few hours of sleep. I think that is not too much for anyone to be asked to do. I think we are a product of a summation of many things. One, a product of how you are born, how and where you grew up, and the experiences they are in. So, after all is said and done, Kioria is the sum total of all his years up to date. I am also the sum total of all my experiences, bad or good. And many times you want to shy away from the bad ones, or what would be called the poor ones, and then associate more with those that which are shining. And I don't think that is correct. Because you are a sum total of all your experiences. My father was a carpenter, living in Kiharu slums in Thika. When I visited my father, I could see outside, I could see people fighting outside when I was in the house. Not because there were window panes, but because of the gaps there were between, in the structure. Where we've come from in terms of upbringing, there is no single day. You remember that time primary schools used to pay school fees. When people were being chased away for school fees, when I saw the headmaster with that sheet, I was already off, even before they read. Because I knew there is no way I could miss in that list. In secondary school also, there is, unless the bursar made a mistake, there is no way I could not be in the list of people who are being sent home to look for school fees. In KU, the same. I had to have a hotel in KM to supplement help so that I am in school. So all those experiences, they make you real. And it's so hard to depart from them. It is almost impossible. And I think they are good because of the grounding. Because, Kioria, something else that you need to ask. Kenya, we have parliament, which I serve in. Is it a House of Commons or a House of Lords? Because I think parliament is a House of Commons. A House of Commons means people do not elect what you'd call the best. They elect one of them. House of Commons means we have agreed you go represent us because you are one of us. So you must have the right, the experiences that are the mean or average of the many, and your thinking must be not very far from the mean of the thinking of the people you are leading, because it's a House of Commons. So that experience is the same experience majority of the parents go through. Then it makes you a more effective leader to have gone through the experiences that the people you are leading have gone through or are going through.